Welcome to the Paradigm Shift on 4ZZZ 102.1, where we challenge the assumptions of our current society to resist oppression and investigate alternative ways of living, for a world based on justice, solidarity and sustainability. Welcome to the Paradigm Shift on 4ZZZ 102.1 FM, your local community radio station, independent, not-for-profit, and made by people for the love of it. And my name's Andy, and I'll be with you for the next hour, broadcasting on Yagara and Turrbal country. And today on the show, we are going to be looking back at a year of a war in Palestine. Last week we did the same, except we were talking about specifically in Brisbane, the movement of solidarity. I spoke with Arima Naji, and today we will be talking about what it has been like in Palestine. And I spoke with Ahmad Abu Monshar, who is a psychologist and an activist in the West Bank in Palestine, based currently in Jenin. And Ahmad had plenty to say about what the effects have been on people there in the West Bank, what the conditions are like of both the military incursions there, the continuing settlers violently taking land, and also the economic impacts of the war on West Bank, a place where now people are imprisoned in there just like they have been imprisoned in the Gaza Strip for a long time. And so it's very valuable to hear from Palestinian people talking about what's happening on the ground. And over the last year, we have spoken to a few on the Paradigm Shift. And actually, I'll give a little plug right now. If you want to hear some of those old interviews, archive, the Paradigm Shift podcast, they all go up on there. Sadly, it doesn't have the music, which is a part of this show that I love, playing political music. But the podcast does keep a record of those interviews, and it's just got a brand new website, Paradigm Shift on 4ZZZ.com, and there you can go and search for all the ones tagged with Palestine, and there you'll be able to hear a few different people from Palestine talking about their experiences, as well as people in Australia who are trying to resist the slaughter that has been happening in the last year, and of course the continuing expanding occupation that has been going on for much longer than that. So we will be speaking with Ahmed. Just a couple of things, because even though most people by now are familiar with terms like Palestine and Gaza, we've had it in our news a lot, I guess I'll just say Ahmad is based in the West Bank, which is, if you're looking at a map of Israel and Palestine, it's actually on the eastern side, but the West Bank of the Jordan River. And people there are separated geographically from people in the Gaza Strip, which is the other main occupied part of Palestine. And so people haven't been able to leave Gaza very much at all for the last few decades while Hamas has been in power there. In recent years, some have been allowed to leave to work in Israel. Of course, this is not because of kindness of Israel's people in Gaza. They need workers, and so some people from Gaza have been allowed to work in there. As we'll hear in this interview, those people, many of them weren't able to return to Gaza when the war started, but they were instantly deported from Israel into the West Bank, and so many of them are living there. Many Palestinians live in refugee camps, having been either recently displaced by expanding settlements, which are small pockets of land that Israeli citizens claim along with the Israeli military, which enables it, and they just take people's land. And so there are people recently displaced from that, or there are people who have been living their entire life in refugee camps, having been displaced at an earlier time in one of the wars where Israel took territory, or just in the expanding settlements which have been going on for a long time. So it's good just to remember that, clear that up, and we are looking back at a year of war in Palestine. I spoke with Ahmad Abu Monshar in the West Bank this week. Let's have a listen to Ahmad.
My name is Ahmad. I'm from Hebron. Currently, I'm living in Jenin. I work as a clinical psychologist for an international organization that provide therapy and support, mental health support for people who are suffer in Jenin and the camp especially. I used to work with community peacemaker teams in Hebron, where we document the violation of the Israeli soldiers and settlers against Palestinians.
Yes, we'll talk more about both what CPT does, and also I'm very interested in your work as a psychologist. But to start off with, obviously Palestine has been in the news for us here in Australia much more in the last year than it had been before that, and it's been a very eventful year for you in Palestine. So I just thought I'd ask, how has life changed for you in the last year?
I think the life have changed in every way that you can imagine, from the way that we are thinking about our movement. We used to have checkpoints between the cities, for example, but it was less aggressive and less, let's say, stopping and waiting people. Currently, after the war, people sometimes waiting at the checkpoints between the roads, sometimes 4 hours, sometimes 5. It depends on the mood of the soldiers. This is like one of the basic thing about right movement, how we are just moving between the cities or between the villages. The aggression from settlers against Palestinians have been increased. Now, last year during the olive harvest season, a lot of people and a lot of families, they couldn't be able to pick the olives because there was a lot of aggression. And now, since we are waiting and we are close to the olive harvest season, people are being afraid now of being not able to pick their olives, which is, as you know, olive trees, it's very important for Palestinians, and it's very connected to our identity and to our culture and to our social celebration. In regards to the water, for example, currently a lot of cities, including Jenin and Hebron, they have less and less water. The Israeli government have reduced the amount of water that they are giving to the municipality, which the municipality, they don't give a lot of water for the houses. In regards to the economics, a lot of unemployment rate have been raised, especially that we have a lot of workers who used to work in the Green Line, the 48 land, but because of the war, they couldn't be able to do it. So the unemployment rate have been increased and impacted the economical situation in the West Bank especially. So you can see it's impacting in every small details, from just small things like water and having the access to have water, electricity, food, economy, into life-threatening such as assassination, closing borders, not being allowed to move, even just like in the old city of Hebron or other areas. A lot of killing. In Jenin, for example, we have witnessed many incursions. You will see like every week or less or more, the Israeli soldiers, they will invade the city, not allowing people to move out of their house, and doing economics and just stuck there, and they will do a demolishing of the roads and the infrastructure, killing people. It's worse in every aspect that you can imagine in life.
So in Gaza, we've of course seen the incredible destruction and violence by the Israeli army, but the justification for this in Gaza is that they're trying to aim for Hamas targets, or they're trying to find these hostages that are being held in Gaza. But in the West Bank, where you are, where there's not so much Hamas and the hostages aren't there, what is the justification they're using for these incursions by the army?
It's a good question, but I think the question, it's not about what's the reason behind of doing this. It's similar to why there is settlements in the West Bank, why there is a lot of assassinations, why there is a lot of killing, why they are controlling water, why they are closing borders and checkpoints, why they are humiliating people, why they are arresting them, why there is administrative detention. Because they always give a reason, whether it's right or not. But the question is why they are keep doing it. They keep doing it because there is no one is stopping them. All of the countries, the governments are kind of directly or indirectly supporting this kind of apartheid state.
A lot of the media focus has been on Gaza. Do you think that what's happened in the West Bank has been ignored by international media and, say, humanitarian organisations, or do you think that it's more important for people to look at what's happening in Gaza?
I think it's very good to highlight of a different situation between the West Bank, the land in the 48 land, and Gaza. And I think the mainstream media, including popular channels, they have been controlled, and they have already their narrative that they want to give a story. It might be changed and impacted a little bit, so they start giving a little bit of information more of what's going on, but that doesn't reflect that they are doing their duty of covering what's going on. But the thing what it's changed is people with a lot of skills in social media, especially the Gen Z, and all of the people who's like doing the social media have been able to show our narrative and reach our narrative to the people. So to be honest, I don't trust the mainstream media, and I don't accept their narratives because even if when they cover it, but not with the full story, with the using with the right words, such as using the conflict. It's not an conflict, it's an occupation. Because conflict, it's give a different understanding, if they say, between conflict and occupation. A lot of articles have been covered, and they said like 1,000 dead or something. They are not dead, they were killed. So even when they are covering it, the words that have been used are not to truly reflect their beliefs of what they are covering.
Now, you said in the introduction that you are a psychologist, and I think Palestine, there's a lot of grief and trauma from lifetimes and generations, in fact. But have you noticed psychological impacts on people in Palestine over the last year?
Totally, especially in Jenin where I work, I have noticed like a lot of anxiety, depression, and trauma. And even here in Palestine, we stopped calling trauma or PTSD for the people who are suffering from trauma, since it's continuous and it didn't stop, and people, they still not feel safe. So the concept of PTSD, we deleted and we replaced it with the complex trauma. because it's not stopped, it's continuous, and people have been impacting for many traumas, not just one, and it finished. It still continue, and we have the generational trauma where people are being since 48 to 67 war, and people are carrying those kind of traumas with them until now. You can see how much it continue, and even I have started to notice that even men especially, they are suffering a lot from depression with the unemployment and what's going on in the war. Some of them they stop working, they stuck at home, they are not leaving it, and it's impacting even the whole family, because it might be generate violence, and violence generate violence. So what we are not witnessing from a wider view, the political situation have impacting the households and families internally, and create more violence, unfortunately. So we are dealing with a lot of complexity, with the grief, which even complicated become the grief here, because once you might be son being assassinated by Israeli soldiers, and the next few months is your second son, they might be kill them, or she might be, or the parents might be get killed by the Israeli soldiers. It's very complicated, very complex, and there is an issue as well we are noticing, and I think not a lot of media they are covering it. We have between the cities, we have Gazan workers who's like from Gaza, especially most of them are men. They have been working in the 48 land, and when the war started, they were kicked out of the 48 land and they moved to the West Bank. They couldn't be able to go back to Gaza. So now we have kind of shelters for the Gazan workers with a lot of people. Some of the shelters have contain maybe 25 people or something, and most of them, they are just afraid of at any time they might be get detained, arrested, in addition to the trauma that they are witnessing and knowing about their family, their husband, their wives, and a lot of them, they lost a lot of people and they didn't be able to bury them or to see them. All what they know about their family, if they were able to reach out to them, is to have some information and the photos. So even we have also people are being more vulnerable and complex with their situation. They have been waiting at least since the war for 1 year to return to Gaza and just meet their family, and but it didn't stop.
It seems like there is a lot of work to do for people like yourself, a psychologist or other counselors, to deal with the mental health issues that are caused by not just this war, but the ongoing occupation and all the effects. Do you think you have enough resources to do the work that's needed?
No, unfortunately, with a lot of complexity in the situation, the structure and the support, it's still a lot it's needed. For myself, I think I work with an international organization and they have, I think, enough budget to do some activities, but it's not enough. Even the government, they don't have much money, which they start reducing the amount of money that they paid for the government workers, such as teachers, doctors, nurses, all of the stuff that work with the government. They are not getting paid enough. And that's also another reason of how this impacting the economical situation here. The destruction of the roads, they still for Jenin, we have a lot of roads now being destroyed by Israeli forces, especially when they enter the big incursion at the end of August, beginning of September for 9 days. And until now, it didn't rebuild it, or they put the street again and support it. And now people, they are being afraid because we are entering winter, and with a lot of dust and stuff, it will be make the life of people more and more painful for them. So the resources it's needed, and it's not enough here in the West Bank.
Around the world, there's been a lot of response and a lot of political movements in solidarity with Palestine. I'm interested to hear what it's been like in Palestine itself politically. Has there been an increase in organising of resistance to Israel, or things in solidarity with Gaza?
It's different from what we are seeing because it's very complicated. If we are doing any activities, we might be harassed, we might be get detained or stuff. Yes, there is a lot of activities that it might be happening, but not very big, because it might be put the people at the risk of being detained or followed, and a lot of risk. We are supporting the BDS. Most of the people here are kind of boycotting the products. We also have everyone their own way of resist. For me, for example, I start writing a novel about the impact of the lost incursion in Jenin, and the loss of the grief itself between one family in Jenin, and how they are dealing with this. So everyone have their own way of resisting, and we are resisting, like being stay on the land, being continue to go to work despite they putting checkpoints and let you like late 1, 2 or 3 hours, despite they try to take your land and just being go there and planting those lands. It's a resistance. But the request, which it's something that really help, is when we are seeing on social media how people are going on the street, raising the Palestinian flag, having some posts and try to deliver a message for their political responsible or for a diplomatic person or stuff. It's helped to increase our hope that we are not left alone. It gives us hope that there is something, it might be changed, there is some hope. For me, every time there is a website, like a page on Instagram, every couple of days when I feel down, I just check them, and they only highlight of the successful of the BDS, and it helped to lift my mood and just capable of trusting that the justice that it might become. But we need to be patient. So what you are doing on the streets, the campaigns that you are doing, the way that you are trying to help and support, it means a lot to us. Maybe you don't know how much because you don't see it, like you are doing change on the street, but these photos, those videos are giving us hope, give us energy to continue and to see the sun shine again.
Oh, we're very glad. It's very hard to know what to do for people in Australia and other parts of the world, but people have been trying a lot of things, and so we're very glad that people in Palestine get to see that.
Yeah, they see it and really proud of it. If everyone who's going to a demonstration and doing something.
What about in Israel? We've seen there have been big protests against Netanyahu, but at the same time, a lot of increasing nationalism around Israel, and like you say, more settlers coming into the West Bank, taking land. What has been the political situation been like in Israel, and how has that affected your life and the life of people in Palestine?
The political situation I'm not sure about, and I might be not the right person to talk about it, but how it's impacting you can see. You can see of the number of people who got killed. You can see by the anxiety and the destruction of houses, of roads, of lives. You can see it of people who got injured and they have been disabled by those kind of bullets or by those kind of aggression. The impacts, you can see it in every small details, as what you asked me, what's changed from since the 7th of October. But it's still like from worse to worse. It doesn't mean that before 7th of October we were living on heaven, or there was no settlers attack or soldiers attack. All of what we are seeing before, but with more aggression, with more violence. So it's impacting in everything that you can imagine and not imagining.
And now it's been a year of this war, this invasion. Are things improving for you, or are things getting worse? How are people feeling about the coming year?
I don't know. I think we reached the stage that we are not expecting the unexpected. So all of the things that we wouldn't be able to expect, it happened. So I don't know. To be honest, we don't have expectation. People are being in a different moods and thoughts. Some of them they feeling it going to be worse, and some of them it will believing that it will be better. One of the statements that I heard from somebody who got really upset from the situation. When I was talking to him, he said, why the Israeli soldiers don't just attacking us, all of us at once, and that's it? Why do we have to wait until to get attacked? Just like they can demolishing us, and that's it, like once, and it will be less painful than what we are going through now. It's just like it's clicked my mind, and I was really so connected with how much the pain that he was suffering and the way that he was talking about. So there is some people believe that there is some justice, it might be heaven, which it might be a little bit difficult to see, since I was born in occupation, and a lot of us now they were born at the occupation and they never saw what's freedom mean.
As part of your job, I suppose you have to be able to help people to keep going in life, and Palestinian people, of course, find ways to keep living and keep resisting, as you say. How do people continue to find hope and find the ability to keep going?
They find it in very interesting ways. They find it through faith, which is very important element in our struggle and what's keep us rooted on this land. Our faith, our beliefs that we have the right to exist, to have the right to have a normal life like anyone in the world. Also, we have the social interaction. The people, how they much care about each other, how they are concerned. During the incursion, you don't see how much I'm living alone by myself in Jenin, and you don't imagine how many people that I can barely know, they start just sending me checking messages and just to see how I'm doing, and if there is some kind of stuff that I need, or if they can a way that they can help. You will see it in the way that the women, especially in the camp, after the incursion happened and they withdrew from the city, they go and sit together and drinking tea and coffee and socializing. You will see it among men when they are going to the cafes and just laughing, maybe after one day of this bad invasion. We have a grief, we are mourning and we are grieving until now, not just because of what's happening in the West Bank, but also in Gaza and Lebanon and around. but the way that we are connected with each other, the way that we love and care for each other, the way that we believe in our faith, it gives us some energy to continue.
I'd like to talk about the work that you do now and the film that you've made, but first let's talk about a Community Peacemaker Teams, the organisation that you've been a part of. What does CPT do in Palestine?
CPT it's an international organization. We have different teams in different countries. We have team in Colombia, we have team in Iraqi Kurdistan, we have volunteers in Turtle Island, what's so-called Canada and United States, supporting the indigenous people there. And we have one team in Hebron, in the old city, led by locals, by Palestinians, and they are supporting the communities in Hebron. We do a lot of activities. One of the most activity that we accompany the school students when they go through the checkpoints in order to reach their school. So we sit close to the checkpoints. We document the violations of children who pass the checkpoints in order to reach the school. They might be get detained, they might be get harassed or slapped or be accused of different ways. So we go there, we sit close to the checkpoints, and we publish reports focusing on how this violation of just for school students have been attacked yearly. We accompany shopkeepers, we sit with them, talk to them, and documenting their stories and how they are suffering from settlers and soldiers. And we were invited by the community. So the way that CPT function is, we don't put ourselves in a community and we say that we want to help you. The community, they will inviting the team and they will do assessment and they come. So the history started when in 1994 when the Ibrahimi Mosque massacre happened. The Hebron municipality invited CPT to do some accompaniment for a couple of months until the situation becoming less stress. So the plan was to stay for maybe 6 months, but now it turned into 29 years of accompaniment and support of the communities there.
And you yourself have also made a film recently called Light. Can you tell us about the film?
Yes, so with collaboration, it's produced by Community Peacemaker Teams and other 3 organizations, and it was directed by me. It's focused on 3 stories: the story of school students when they are passing checkpoints, and explaining simply how is the situation in Hebron and how it's connected with the history. We cover 2 stories. Nisreen, she's living in Tel Ermeda area where it's very close, and she got impacted. She lost her husband when because of the tear gas when she was trying to move him to the hospital, and she started to paint to express her anger, her feelings, and she started selling them. And the second story, it's about Tariq. He's a human rights activist and English teacher in South Hebron Hills, and it focused also on the loss of his uncle, Haj Sulaiman al-Hadalin, who got run over by there was a settlers sitting on a car or a bulldozer, and he ran over the body of Haj Sulaiman. So the Light, it's just a storytelling of 2 stories. We cover their story that filled with pain, sadness, but also at the end of the part, we are covering the sense of light, of hope, on how they doing in order to keep working. And light represents hope. Light represents that we are shedding lights on those 2 stories out of many stories that we have here. The people that we filmed with, they give us hope, and we try to give us hope for others that every story it's matter. and we are not just a number.
Yeah, light can be very hard to find at the moment. There's so many terrible things that are going on, and things seeming to only get worse as the war expands into new frontiers. But what do Palestinian people hope for the future? What would a good future look like for people at the moment caught in this terrible situation?
We are looking for freedom, for the right of return. There is a lot of refugees since 48 war, and they still been waiting until now to come back to their land, to come back to their country and having normal life. So we are seeking just to have a normal life, to have rights, to have being seen as a human, not as what of the Israeli ministry called us as a human animal. We want our rights.
Well, thanks very much, Ahmad, for chatting with us today.
Thank you so much for your support, for making the place for to share some of our pain and maybe help us to let the people hear our stories, our voice. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your work and the way that you are supporting Palestinians and everyone who stand with Palestine with their small stuff by just not buying Israeli or settlements product into the people who's going into demonstrations and scream for free of Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmad. That is Ahmad Abu Monshar speaking from Jenin in the West Bank, talking about the last year of it's been a very hard one for Palestine, a lot of suffering, a lot of struggle, but a lot of keeping on going and finding ways to continue, and it was beautiful to hear about some of those things as well in that interview. Now, you would have heard in that last part that Ahmad has directed a film called Light, and that film is going to be screened in Brisbane on Saturday, November 2nd at House Conspiracy in Mollison Street in West End. If you want more details, you can head to the Paradigm Shift Facebook page. I'll post it on there. Or also Justice for Palestine Magunjin. They always are listing all the events that are happening in our city in solidarity with Palestine. And not just solidarity, hopefully with tactics like the boycotts, divestments and sanctions, which Ahmed has spoken about there, the BDS. It's an attempt at using what power we have, even though we're far away from the situation, but as consumers, what power we have to try to enact change and stop the forever expanding settlements of Israel into Palestinian land and the further displacement of Palestinian people. And we'll keep on trying to support on 4ZZZ, as so many shows have been. I know Radio Reverse the last couple of weeks has been looking back at the year in Palestine as well, and the Paradigm Shift we will continue to, and it's so important to hear from people on the ground who are affected and hear what their hopes are, and also hear the things that they are doing there. I'll see you next week.